Morning, everyone. Does nature progress? Does the world progress? So the other day, tried to make a distinction between the world itself and human thought or human culture. So the world itself, you could say, is the natural world, everything in nature. And so if we can make that distinction, then you can ask these questions, maybe get a little bit closer to finding out what's happening. So when we say, is the world progressing, we have to ask if we're including ourselves in that. So are we actually progressing? Are we in some kind of march towards progress? Some would say, of course, we're accumulating all this knowledge, all this information, we're finding more things out. Okay, so the accumulation of knowledge, that's happening, that is happening. Is that progression? Okay, we'll come back to that. But let's just go back to, is nature progressing? So we're at the very end of a long chain of history, human beings. Everything from the word go has been in some kind of, would you call it, a forward momentum. The world or the planet has been here for a long time before we have. Lots of different life forms have all been here for millions of years before humans have. So would you say, before, up until that tiny part at the end of all of history, have things been progressing up to that point? Did it progress into dinosaurs, and did it then regress when dinosaurs died out? I think it's more fairer to say things just change. Things have definitely evolved. Life forms have definitely become more complex, but there's been complex life forms for, as I say, millions of years. Is the human being the most complex life form? Because it's got consciousness, it's got awareness, self-awareness. Who knows, really? The thing is, if we're going to say that we're in a chain of history, which means we're progressing, then we'd have to say that everything before that was progressing. But upon inspection, it doesn't look like there was any such thing as progression. It just looks like it's change, it's evolution, it's change. Everything is just in a constant state of flux. It's not necessarily moving forwards or getting better. That's why I asked the original question, is nature progressing? Is the tree that I'm looking at now outside this car any better than a tree a million years ago, or whenever it was? I'm not too good with me time periods of when there was vegetation and certain kinds of life and stuff like that. And then how are we judging better? What is better? Is better just complex? Is better just a more complex life form? It's got more functionality to it, more features. What's that for? If you're going to judge that something's better, then you're going to have to say that something's purpose driven. And it's ironic that the people who seem to be in the camp that we're doing better say that there's no purpose, i.e. the rationalists, the empiricists, the hardcore scientists, the people who have no time for religious thought, spiritual thought, meaning, purpose, all of that kind of stuff. They don't seem to recognize all that, but then say that we are progressing. How can it be progressing? What's it progressing to? How do you frame progression? What's the frame of reference? What's getting better? What purpose is being served to say that it's better? So okay, what is the frame of reference for progression for humanity? Say, so surely we're here, number one, to survive, make sure that we live as opposed to die, and we have as little suffering as possible, maybe. And therefore, if we're to progress, then we would be eradicating suffering, ensuring our survival. Is that happening? Is that happening? It's debatable. We look like we're on the brink of disaster in many different areas. So how can it be progress if the all this accumulation of knowledge, how can that be deemed progress if the frame of reference that sits within is telling us that no, that purpose isn't being served? It's very debatable. Okay, what about transcendence? Let's just throw that in the mix as a means of being able to decide if we're progressing. If there is progression, then maybe human beings can transcend. Transcend what? Well, again, so I suppose suffering comes into it, but we could say maybe the human condition. Now, other people wouldn't throw this in the mix as a means of a goal, but let's just play with it, because I just think that's an interesting one. I'm of the opinion that transcendence is the means to judge whether we're doing well or not. Can we transcend the human condition? So again, is the accumulation of all of our knowledge helping towards that goal? Again, very debatable. Is it even taking us further and further away? Were previous times better for offering some means of transcendence? Some kind of surer footing in the world to be able to navigate its problems, to navigate the human problems. But yeah, I mean, what initially sparked this video was just the thought that, to me, it appears nature, or what I would call the real world, from what I was talking about in a previous video, that's never been progressing. It's just always been there, changing, evolving. Whether that means better or progression, I don't know. It just changes. It's not goal driven. Complexity, even if that's a thing, it doesn't mean anything. Okay, maybe so then it's like, what's humanity doing if it's not progressing? The same thing. If we see ourselves as part of nature, part of the real world, then we're just here. We're just here doing what we do and what we think of as progression. We really have to assess towards what we are progressing to. Okay, again, more questions than answers here, but leave your comments, leave your own questions, feedback, and let me know what you think. Alright, cheers everyone.